Brigitte, let me begin with a question. What does psychology have to say about ecology? What can we add to the discussion of ecology? There's so much awareness of it already in the world, and now we're going to talk about water and clean water and polluted water. What can we add to the discussion? Why does psychology have something to say, or what does it have to say?
Thank you, Murray. Well, I think we have a lot to say from psychology because we have so many inner images that have such an influence on the way we behave and our world views and so, and to bring them in to the discourse in ecology can help us to have these images not so much unconsciously conditioning us, but we have it at disposition, and for certain things they can help us to behave in another way for ecology. And also very often, if we are aware of these inner images, inner representations, inner mythologies, then we can also see where they impede us to behave in a more rational way or in a more simple way with ecology.
So what you're saying is that when we scientifically look at the world in the 21st century, and this is true for the last several centuries, basically we're looking at the world out there, and we think we're seeing it pretty clearly. We think we can measure it with our scientific instruments, we can test it, we can experiment with it, but we're not aware of the subjective factor behind these experiments and behind these constructions that we make. We impose things on nature without being aware of it. Are you saying that our psyches creep into our industry and into our scientific work and our rational enlightenment endeavors in a questionable or destructive way?
Okay, this is always a good question, which brings in also the whole psychology and the whole problems of neurosis, because if we are not aware of the inner images and urges we have, then usually they continue to live, even we are not conscious of them, and they get usually behind our back and behave in a more destructive way, because then instead of having them as a tool with which we may be in dialogue, then they are like an obsession behind us and have such an influence in the way we conceive politics and ecology or practical issues.
So you're saying it's very important that we become aware of the subjective factor, that we bring the objective and the subjective, the inner and the outer worlds together again. They've been separated, they've been split. We have subject-object dichotomy. We forget about the subject, we work with objects, we think we're being rational, objective, but actually we're distorting things.
Exactly. And the idea would be to have both sides in a dialogue, both sides always addressed with the same amount of energy and care and attention. And I think nowadays we are so much concerned with outer things. We totally forget to take care of the inner world, of the inner images and urges. So it's natural that, if they cannot find an outlet on the proper level, then they are going to disturb the rest.
Now, we're going to talk about water. In an earlier seminar, we talked about energy. Energy is something very abstract, intangible. Can't really put your finger on it. It's real, but water is really out there. You drink it, you bathe with it, you cook with it. It's in the rivers, it's in the rain, it's in the tsunamis, it's in the storms and in the ocean. It's really something that belongs to the outer world. And we want to talk about also water as in its symbolic values. Can you give me an example of how this might work? Let's say we think about water objectively as something that we bathe in, that purifies things. What else do we need to be aware of? Or how does the psyche get into this in a destructive way, in a distorting way?
Well, one example where we can see this quite properly is to think of the way we deal with rivers. Now, there is an urge everywhere to channel rivers or to dam them to be able to produce energy out of it. And in Switzerland, for example, we have all the great rivers are now artificially, constrained or channeled and so on. And now, if we are looking at the inner images that correspond to this, we can see that, the urge to channel the inner waters, and here I have to make a parenthesis, the inner waters is the best image, water is the best image for psychic energy and the movements of psychic energy. Okay, if we take this necessity to channel psychic energy, not to let it simply do whatever without any eye on it, to just follow our urges, instinctive urges and so. Then you realize that if we are not taking this clearly into consciousness that there is an urge to channel, then we are going to overcharge the outer waters with this kind of urge to channel all the waters.
Too much channeling.
Too much channeling.
Inner
outside.
and outer.
Yeah, and I think, no, actually nowadays we can really see we are not so much working at channeling the inner energies so properly in the Western world. We are depressive people. That's linked to not being able, to have access to the inner waters.
What about this image that you showed me of this polluted stream or river? There was a bunch of garbage in there. And I thought, how horrible. It's ugly. That's an aesthetic judgment, right? What about the psychological, symbolic side of that? What do you have to say about that? Okay,
well, that's a beautiful example because now you mentioned the urge that to clean this up. Now, this is only one part of the picture, because the other side of the picture is, okay, and why is it so simple to throw everything into the water, all the garbage, all the dirt in the water or even in the oceans? How much things do we sink into the ocean? How much plastic do you find in the ocean? Now, I think, this image of water, of being the medium of purification. Think of the right rituals where you wash your hands before you enter into a temple and so. Then you realize that there is this immense faith that water is capable to clean everything. But for practical, outer, real water, that's not true. There are limits to it. And there you see it. And of course, the aesthetic need to clean is a good sign that we realize that we have to do something.
Yes. So I like, I find water magical. When I wash dishes, for example, or I wash my hands, this purification to me is almost magical. That water is so powerful to cleanse. But I never think by doing that I'm dirtying the water. It never occurs to me.
Yes, and this is such a beautiful example where you realize that the inner images we have are so powerful.
And somehow I guess we grow up with the notion, and maybe it's not such a bad one, I don't know, but that the whole world is here to serve us. Water is here to help us live our lives better. We can't live without water. We need pure water to drink and to clean ourselves, but it's all oriented toward the human benefit somehow, isn't it?
Yes.
We don't think the other way about it.
And to bring an image for this question is we are getting out of the era of the fishes, where, the fishes are simply in the water, there is no problem. And now we enter into the era of Aquarius. And what does Aquarius make? he has a kind of jar and gives the water back to the. It's actually to a fish in astrology, in astronomy, in the constellation of the heavens, and I think it's exactly what we have to do now. This water, this inner water, this inner psychic energy, this attention, this care, we have to give it back to the earth nowadays. We cannot simply count on the great Mother Earth that gives us everything. Now we have to, find a balance again.
And what about giving back to our inner world? We're talking about, sharing our energy and our wealth with the outer world, with nature, and giving back. What about giving back to the inner, to the symbolic world? Because as you say, it's so impoverished in modern scientific society, isn't it? There's hardly any awareness of an inner world, even. Everything is outside.
Yes, and very often when you speak of inner world, you have many people who don't even understand what we mean with this. And I think, giving this kind of inner water back to ourselves, or inner water in the sense of symbolic water back, would be, for example, listen carefully with attention. What kind of images we have, what moves us, and then we realize such an inner world of images and ideas that is so full of life. And if we do that, usually we are vivified, and that's why it's such a treat to deal with symbolic material, because it has immediately this kind of watering effect.
And do you think it relieves the outer world if we feed the inner world more? We don't turn to the outer world for everything. We feel more alive within without consuming so much.
And I think it's quite a direct link between both. And first of all, we learn to listen to the outer world at the same time, not only listening in the inner, to the inner images. You listen to the outer world, and then we don't overcharge the outer world with so many psychic needs.
So we can maintain ourselves better without consuming so much.
Exactly.
And this is very important, isn't it?
Yes, and and for me it means we could really sum it up with a little sentence. It means giving back the sacredness to water again, to the outer water.
Thank you, Brigitte.